All right. So I'm going to respond to this comment by Kate Higgins. And this is in the response to a couple comments in a little thread thing. Kate said, it's been a life habit to analyse, but now the questions only halfway form and then fade away. Not sure if desire or motivation to do much of anything will ever come back, but oh well. Thanks for posting your videos. I'm glad someone's not as lazy as I am. I mean, this is quite a lazy thing. I'm just sitting in my car talking, and it actually is really easy to talk about this because you don't have to think about it at all. You just start speaking, and sometimes what comes out is absolute nonsense, or maybe it all is, but I don't know. So with the thing about analysing and the noticing of, so what is it that's noticing the thoughts and the questions half forming and then fading away? What is that that's noticing that as something that's happening, something that's occurring, or something that's playing out over a period of time from a point of view? Is there some, so see when you notice, so for example, there's an analytical thought or a question that appears in thought, and it might be language, it might be more subtle than that, it might just be like a movement, but the tone of it has a tone to it, and you know what it means, that appears, and then there's a noticing of that, there's like a recognition that that's a thought. And then this is when it gets paradoxical, and this is why it's so hard to point to this, because it would be easy for me to say there's a you that notices from a point of view, a witness noticing thoughts coming and going, but that very witness, that very one who notices that viewpoint, is in itself inherently that same thought function. What happens when that's noticed and then let go of? Before there's a movement of mind, possibly. What is it that is here in the absence of the one that notices? This is when it gets a little bit tricky to describe, and I can't actually clearly describe this part because it's paradoxical, but see if you can notice the sense of the one noticing, the sense of the observer, the sense of the one who is here, I am here, as a constant over time. See if there can be a clear recognition, a clear, I'm not going to say noticing, because that would suggest you notice it from a point of view, but see if there can be a clear recognition, or how would you say, there's only one way to describe this, right? See if that can become clear in experience, that sense of the one who persists as a constant over time, who is, or this point of view that's able to notice or observe thoughts coming and going, forming and then fading away. I would say explore that. They see what that is. See if that's actually always here, or see if that even needs to be here in order for this to be what it is. This is the point where I can describe these things in the way that I've come to describe them, where I could say that the me, the sense of self, the thinker, I always tend to describe it like this. This now is a context. It's a tendency. It's a habitual assumption. It just seems to be there. It's just assumed to be the way it is. That I'm going to do my practice. I'm looking. The premise is I'm looking for thoughts. I'm looking for I'm searching for the absence of myself by watching thoughts. But it's really easy to hear what I'm saying now and take it continually from that point of view, because I can only describe things in a certain way. I can only describe things in a context of subject and object. I'm limited to use language. But I always say that the thinker, the sense of the me, the sense of the one who has thoughts is suggested in the context of the thought. It almost comes prior. It's a thought prior to the objective thoughts. So the analytical thoughts that come and go, at the core of that, at the root of that, or let's say one step before that, there's this sense of me, this sense of the observer, and it's a hidden, subtle thought, because when we look from that, we don't see it. There's no me that sees it, but when we're looking from it, we continue to reinforce the assumption that there's a me that observes my thoughts. There are thoughts coming and going, and there's a me constant throughout that observes them. What I'm trying to point to is backwards. I'm trying to point in the way to that fundamental assumption, and it's like a habitual tendency. It is itself a form of thought, but the strange thing about it is that it doesn't seem like a thought. It's tied up with. For me, it seemed more like a feeling, like a just there-ness, a just here-ness of me. It's not a thought in the sense of an overt objective thought. See, as was this Kate? Yeah, as you described. Sorry, I just closed the video there. As you described there, those overt objective thought narratives, which hold attention from this point of view. So let's say you've got this point of view that's looking out at this objective thought narrative, the analytical thoughts coming and going. As they start to calm down, like you say, they don't even fully form after a certain point because they're noticed so quickly. And as they're noticed, you can just let go of them. You can stop them dead, in a sense. And as you keep doing this, they go from this really real experience of having thought as the thinker, and then those objective thoughts calm down, and then to the point that it's not even distinguishable. There's movement of thought there, but it's not even clear if that is a thought, but there's something going on there. There is a subtle movement there, and you can observe the habitual tendency of that to come up and then be noticed and then fade away, to come up and then be noticed and fade away. And that act of continuing to try and notice kind of calms down, and then what I could describe it like this: the one noticing then becomes, it becomes clear that's a thought too. That's what was continually reinforced in the context of these, as a premise, as an assumption in these objective thought narratives. And once those calm down, once that all comes down to the point where you can slow down and stop enough, then the subject thought becomes clear. It kind of it's noticed. It's not noticed. It becomes clear that it's a thought, but it's not noticed from any particular position. It just becomes clear that it's a thought. And then that whole subject-object thing collapses in the mind. The whole idea, the assumption of me, the subject, persisting over time, observing my life, my thoughts, it just loses its reality. And then what's here in the absence of that, it becomes clear. And that's what I can't talk about because there aren't any words for it. I can kind of talk up to this point, but this is the point where that's like the tipping point. That's when things flip, and then what I'm always talking about on this channel then becomes, let's say, is revealed to itself. It becomes obvious. It's no longer obscured by this weird tendency, this weird function of subject-object dynamic in the mind, of me and my thoughts, me and my experience, and so on. So I would say, as those thoughts partially form and calm down, just keep doing that, and then see what feels like me that's here, that's observing this, that's having this experience. What am I that's here, that's having this experience? I'm sorry, I had to take a call there. So so that sense of the subject is a thought, but it might not feel like a thought. It might feel like you. It might feel like you as the one who's having the experience, the one who is the thinker, the subject, the felt sense of me. And it might not even be distinguishable from a feeling. It might not feel or seem like a thought, even though it is. And it's quite paradoxical, because it's not like you either turn your attention around or like take a step back, let's say, bring the attention onto the felt sense of me as the subject, but there's no step back from that. That's when it becomes very paradoxical. The step back from that almost is like a step into everything, and it's not like a movement. It's like a recognition that what you are doesn't need to be found, is already inherently always here, and what you are isn't separate from the thoughts. The thoughts can only be resisted or labelled not me from a point of view with another thought. So it becomes very paradoxical at that point, and that's what's realised is something that I can't directly talk about, but it's much more of a remembering than a discovery. It's much more of a recognition of what you are inherently anyway, and always have been. It's stopping rather than an act of doing. It's a relaxation, surrender, a calming down of the movement that makes your experience of you seem like what it is, seem like something tangible that you can understand and rationalize. And it's a relaxing into what you are that's already here, what you are that doesn't need to be qualified by thoughts or doesn't need to be held onto as a sense of me that needs to do this or needs to do that or needs to discover or understand this or understand that. It's already inherently complete, and already inherently peaceful, neutral, at rest. It doesn't need anything. There's no urgency. There's no and then the next thing. There's no something else. There's nothing apart or at a distance. There's nothing good or bad about it. There's nothing you can say about it. There's no losing it. There's no coming and going. But all of that is accommodated as this, as what you are, but at the same time is not touched by it. Everything moves, say, within it or as it, but at the same time it doesn't move. It seems like there are lots of aspects of experience, lots of objects, lots of thoughts, lots of emotions, but what I'm pointing to is all of it, but at the same time none of it. It's here, but it's also not here at the same time. So then you just continue talking in paradoxes to vaguely describe what I'm pointing to that you already are, and always have been, which isn't particularly anything, but that becomes clear. It becomes clear to itself. And then all the effort and all the analysing and all that can just dissolve into it, can just fall away, and it just gets, like I always say, really, really simple, because there's no effort in it. There's no cultivating it or creating it or progressing or whatever. It's already complete. Anyway, that'll do for now. Hope that helps, and I'll talk to you next time.